No. All right, so solving an inequality, it's going to look exactly the same as an equation, except what? Yeah, like instead of an equal sign, you're going to have one of these, like a less than, a greater than, a less than, equal to, a greater than, equal to. You're going to start out the exact same way. Pretend this was an equal sign. What would you do? Evacuate. Minus over the 3. Evacuate. Evacuate. Get it all to one side so that you have 0. So subtract over the 3 so that you have 0. Same as an equation. Then what? Factor. Perfect. Exactly like an equation. So 2x squared would split 2x and 1x. Now 2s and 3s and like with 5s and 6s, sometimes the like positive and negative signs can, like we're really gonna have to check our pluses and minuses here. Now 3 would be 1 and 3. Do you want to put the 1 in the first parenthesis or the 1 in the second parenthesis? See, because I think this is one where it works both ways, but then you have to check your symbols. So what are the outsides given you? 6, insides 1. To get a positive 5, you would need positive 6 minus 1. All right, so that's all the same as an equation. Here is where it is different. This symbol means what? Greater than 0. Now, if we were graphing this, which don't panic, I'm not going to make you graph it. That would be where the graph is above sea level. Remember we talked about that, like above or below the x-axis? We're looking for where the graph is above 0. You do that by making number lines. We're going to make a number line for each one of these factors. So you're going to take the 2x minus 1, make a number line, the x plus 3, make a number line. If you have a lot of factors, does anyone play a musical instrument? Like if you have a lot of them, you end up drawing all these lines, and I always feel like it looks like a musical staff, like I want to draw notes on it or something. That's what it looks like to me. Now you're going to put the zeros on there, but they have to go in order. It's a number line, so smallest to biggest. What would make this one 0? 1/2, good. And this one, -3. So watch, -3 is going to go on this number line, and 1/2 is going to go on this number line. But do you see how I put the -3 before the 1/2? Like this one's smaller, that one's bigger. Negative, okay. Then you're going to just pick test numbers. Do you remember we picked a test number? We don't care what it actually comes out to, just if it's positive or negative. Give me a number smaller than 1/2. 0 would be a smart choice. You could pick anything smaller than 1/2, but like work smarter, not harder. Let's plug in 0 to this. 0 times 2. 0 minus 1. The point is that it's negative. Any number that you plug in on this side of 1/2 is going to give you a negative. That's all going to be negatives. Now give me a number bigger than 1/2. 1. Again, you can pick any number bigger than 1/2. You could pick 17 billion, but like pick something easy, right? Let's do 1. 2 times 1. We'll try again. 2 times 1. Are you really confusing people? Oh, okay. 2 minus 1. What the point is, it's positive. So everything on this side is going to be positive. We're going to do the exact same thing with the other number line. Give me a number that lives over here, smaller than -3. -4. You could pick -1,000,000 if you want. -4 plus 3. The point is that it's negative. And then give me a number bigger than -3. -2 is fine. I would go 0. Like if 0 is an option, I'd pick 0. That's my 2 cents for you. Again, that comes down to personal preference. That's up to you. I'm going to pick 0 though. 0 plus 3. Then point is that it is positive. So these are all going to be positive. Now, once you do each number line, you're going to split it up. I usually use a different color for this. They don't show up very great on the projector, and it really doesn't matter. But they look like little balloon strings is kind of how I think of them. Like we're splitting our number line into those 3 sections. And now we're going to look at what the overall sign is. So look at the first section. Do you see how both of these are negative? A negative times a negative. So the overall sign is positive. And if you have more number lines, like you have to consider all of them. All right, the middle section, you have a negative times a positive, which would be negative. And then over here, a positive times a positive is positive. Can you leave that on my desk for me? Thank you. Now here's how you write your answer, because what happens with these ones is people do that beautifully and then like fall on their face when they go to write the answer. Do you want the positive sections or do you want the negative sections? It comes back to this symbol. We want greater than 0, so we would want positives. And I've also found over the years that if people shade them in, that helps. I don't really know why, but if you want to shade them in, like these are just tricks I've learned over the years that like help people. These are the two sections that we want. And then you write your answer. So this section, it would be negative infinity up to -3. And then we're going to have the bracket versus parenthesis conversation. And again, it comes back to this symbol. What do you think? Brackets or parentheses? Good, because there's not an equal. So you want parentheses. If there was an equal to there, then you would put a bracket. All right, union. And then we want this section over here, which would be 1/2 to infinity. And then that is your answer. If I made you graph it, please, I want you to understand what we actually did. All right. If you were to graph it, this is where the graph would be above the x-axis. This section is where the graph would be below the, good, perfect. Okay. And last thing I'm going to say before we do another one, and this is to like save you some work. If nothing weird happened, and you're going to know, because if something weird happens, you're going to go, huh, that was weird. Like if there's a negative thrown in there, or if something's backwards, or if something's squared. If nothing weird happened, it will always be negative and then turn positive. Or you can pick a test number, but I'm just trying to save you some work there. Okay. Now for this one, factoring that is going to be difficult because it's cubed. I'm going to need to do a synthetic division. Let me grab a calculator for us. Let me go ahead and type this in really quick. 2x cubed, what is it? Minus 3x squared, minus 32x plus 48. What Zoom did we do when we had to look at these? Zoom 6. Remember this from last unit? I'm trying to like review for you what we did before. Oh, someone turned the stat plot on. Hold on, let me turn that off. Do you see those little dots hanging out in there? Okay, well here, I'm gonna turn them off for you. It's okay. All right, so we need one place where this touches the x-axis. What do you think? 4, do you guys see that? Right there? Okay, 4 goes in the little box. Is our countdown in order? Yes. 2, -3, -32, 48. Oh, what should the remainder be? Should be 0. Go ahead. Not should be, it will be 0. If you don't get 0, you had a whoopsie. Two, 5, -12. Okay. It will be 2x squared plus 5x minus 12, and then we're going to factor that. So how would you split 2x squared? 2 and 1. Now 12 can be 2 times 6 or 3 times 4, and then you have to mix and match where you're putting these. If we guess wrong, is it a big deal? No, you will just try again. You have to have some perseverance. I think it might be the 3 and the 4 though. So 3 here, 4 here. So the outsides will give you 8. We want that to be positive. Positive 8 minus 3 will give you 5, and -3 times 4 will give you -12. Okay, now we're going to draw our number lines. I'm sorry, I kind of like didn't have too much room for this. You're going to have a number line for 2x minus 3. You're going to have a number line for x plus 4. Oh, but there's a third one. Do you remember when you were writing your answers on your last test? I was like, don't forget to write that one that you found in the first place. Now, if your 0 was 4, what's the factor that you're going to put down here? X minus 4. Again, if it was 4, you put x minus 4. See, it starts to look like a musical staff. Even if you don't play musical instruments, you know what I'm talking about? Like the thing with the notes on. All right, now we have to decide all the zeros that go on there, and we have to put them in order. Which one of these is going to give us like the smallest one? Oh, that's from this one. If your 0 is 4, your factor is x minus 4. You always have to remember to use that one that you had in the first place. Good. The x plus 4 will give us what? The negative 4. And remember, if nothing weird happened, and you will know if something weird happened. I have some examples on here where something weird happens. You'll go, huh, that was weird. If nothing weird happened, it's going to be negative and then turn positive. And I'm just trying to save you some work. That's all. You can always pick a test number like I showed you. Which one would give us like the next one in order? Yeah, this one would give you what? If you set that equal to 0, it would be 3/2, 3/2, which would be 1.5, right? And again, since nothing weird happened, it's going to be negative and then turn positive. You will go, huh, that was weird. Like it'll look weird. You will not be able to miss it. And I have some examples later on here where you're going to be like, huh, that was weird. Like I'll show you. You won't be able to misunderstand. And then what's this last one give you? 4. And so again, it's going to be negative and then turn positive. And so what you're going to do is slice up your number line with these little like balloon strings. That's what they always look like to me. Little balloon strings. And you want the overall sign for the whole section. So when you look at the first section, negative times negative times negative, the negative, and it's gonna alternate. You get that, right? Like if nothing weird happened, it's gonna alternate. The next section, negative times negative. Well, negatives cancel, so positive, and then this section, negative and then positive. Again, believe it or not, that's the part that really goes great. Like people practice this, they understand, they listen, they learn, you're all good students. It's writing the answer is what gets people. You have to go back and remember what section you want. What does this symbol mean? Less than or equal to. So we want the negatives, good. So if you want to shade them in, I found that that helps. And so this first section would be negative infinity until what number? Until negative 4. Ooh, why a bracket? Because it had the equal to. Now you can never put a bracket on an infinity or a negative infinity. Those are always going to be a parenthesis because it's not a value. It's like a, infinity is like an abstract concept, right? All right, union, and then we want this other shaded section, which would be from where to where? 3/2 to 4. That's your answer. We did it. And again, if I made you graph it, the graph would be below the x-axis, above, below, above. That's what's going on visually. It doesn't matter that we kind of encroached on the space for this one here because I made this in A, B, C, D. We're only going to draw a number line for this one. And I did it as a compare and contrast kind of thing. What do you notice about all 4 of these? Just look at them. What do you notice? They're all the same. Like the first part's the same. All I did was I changed greater than 0, less than 0, greater than equal to 0, less than equal to 0. Do you get what I'm saying? So we can do a compare and contrast. All right, what we're going to do is factor that. X and X. Oh, good. It's X plus 1, X plus 1. Huh, that's weird. Because you can rewrite that as what? X plus 1 squared. Oh my gosh, there's a squared. Do you see what I was saying? How you're not going to miss it if something weird happened? You're going to be like, oh, there's a squared. That's different. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you won't be able to miss it. Okay. So when you make a number line for your X plus 1 squared, what would make that factor 0? Well, get rid of the squared. It would just be negative 1. Because what's the square root of 0? 0. Plus and minus 0 should be 0. Okay. But there's a squared. When you square something, it is always positive. It is going to be positive the whole way across. When you square something, it is positive all the time. The only place it's not positive is at, what is it at -1? Because it's not positive or negative, it's 0. Okay, so it's positive everywhere except specifically at that number. Now we're going to write our answer. It says greater than 0. Well, we just said that it's greater than 0 everywhere except, we can't say it's greater than 0 if it is 0. Does that make sense? It's like saying you're taller than yourself. You can't say that. So how do I write that I want everything except -1? Everyone's invited except -1. Negative infinity to -1 with what? Parentheses, good, union, good. And I'm not going to redraw the number line because it's going to be the same. We're just going to look at the A, B, C, D and write the answer. This is the exact same thing. It would be the exact same number line. Oh, but it says greater than or equal to 0. What do you think? It would just be everything, right? So how would we write everything? Perfect. Perfect. Everything. Because that time we equaled it, like it's greater than or equal to 0. So you want, like we invited 1 to the party, or -1, I'm sorry. -1 got invited in. How about C? That says less than 0. Well, look at your number line. Where is this less than 0? Nowhere. There is no number that would make that true. No number on God's green earth is going to make it work. And this one's interesting. Less than or equal to 0. Well, there's no place that it's less than. It would just be -1 is literally the only place where that would work, because that's the only place it's equal to 0. I just did that as a compare and contrast so you could see like the different options. Okay. Now these ones, instead of being polynomial, they're rational. The only difference is you can't include the troublemakers. Who's your troublemaker for this one? And if you want to write it off to the side, x can't be -1. Even if there was supposed to be a bracket, you can't put a bracket on -1. That's the only difference. Other than that, it's the exact same. And I made the first one easy. It doesn't even need factored. You're just going to make a number line for your x minus 3 and a number line for your x plus 1. So which one, because you have to go smallest to biggest, which one of those is going to give you the smallest? Yeah, good. This one will be -1. Did anything weird happen? No. So what can I fill it in with? Negative to positive. And again, I'm just trying to save you some work. It's already a lot of work, so I'm just trying to save you some work. This one would give you 3. And again, nothing weird happened. So it'll be negative and then positive. And then you're going to slice up your number line with these little like balloon strings here. So what is the overall sign for the first section? Negative and negative, positive, negatives cancel. And then this section, negative, and then positive. I once got asked why positives didn't cancel and make a negative. I really wasn't sure how to answer that, but a positive number times a positive number is going to be a positive number. All right, now which sections do we want? Go back to this symbol, greater than or equal to 0. We want the positives above sea level. And then you just write your answer. And again, I'll tell you what, this part, which I consider the harder part, always goes well. It's writing the answer that ends up being a difficulty. All right, how would we do this first section? Now, so yeah, like here's where it gets weird when it's rational. You would think bracket based on this symbol, but -1 is one of your troublemakers. So you can't include that. And I know that's weird. That's just like a weird thing. All right, union. Now 3 can have a bracket, right? 3 wasn't a problem. So bracket on 3 to infinity. 3 wasn't called. That's like, hey, -1, why can't you be more like your sibling 3? I don't know. I'm an only child, so I never dealt with that. Go ahead.
So even though the top would be 3, it doesn't matter.
Right. Let's have that conversation. Hey guys, a numerator being 0 is okay. Question? Why is a numerator being 0 okay? If the numerator's 0, you just get 0. Why is the denominator being 0 not okay? Yeah, you can't divide by 0, be undefined. You with me over there? Yes. Okay. How would we factor the numerator here? How would that split up? Oh, good. X plus 5, x plus 5. So it would be x plus 5 squared. And then the denominator would be, oh, really close. It'd be x minus 2. Good. So x minus 2, x plus 2. And you want to go in order. Which one's going to give you the smallest? The x plus 5 squared. That would give you -5. However, oh, something weird happened. There's a squared. So it's not going to be negative and turn positive like usual. It's going to be what? It'll be all positive. Anytime you square something, it's positive all the time. And then which one would be next? The x plus 2 would give you -2. Nothing weird happened, so it's going to be negative, turn positive. And then the x minus 2 would give you +2. And again, nothing weird happened. So negative and then turn positive. I kind of like these. I like drawing them. They're cute. You just put in pluses and minuses. That's like your work. And then you're going to slice up your number line. It sounds violent. I'm going to like slice this up. So what's your overall sign for the first section? That would be positive. The negatives cancel. And then this one, that's also positive. It didn't alternate because we had like that weird thing in there with the squared. And then this section, negative, and then positive. Good. Your troublemakers are that positive and negative too. So even though this seems like we would want a bracket, you can't put a bracket on the positive or negative too, because they would make a 0 denominator. All right, which sections do we want? The positives or the negative? Good. It's smaller than 0, so we want this section. So it would be -2 to +2. And again, even though this equal to is on there, we can't put brackets on those because those are our troublemakers. All right, so for this one, first thing that we're going to need to do is factor the numerator. How is that going to split? It'll be 4 and 1, and they'll both be negative. So we'll have x minus 4, x minus 1. And you can write that like off to the side if you want to. I just kind of went ahead and put it in the number lines, but you know, again, personal preference. Denominator doesn't factor, so -x plus 3. Huh, that's weird. There's a negative. Do you guys get what I'm saying? That when something weird happens, you're not going to miss it. You're going to be like, huh, that was weird. Like you're not, if you're alive and paying attention, you're not going to miss it. All right, now setting those each equal to 0, that negative does kind of like, you have to extra think about it. All right, which one's going to give us like the first 0? Because we have to go smallest to biggest. Yeah, this one, right? That'll give us 1. Now, nothing strange happened with that one. So it'll be negative and then turn positive. And then which one gives you the next 0? Yeah, that one would give you +3. But hey, there's a negative. So let's pick test numbers. Can you give me a number smaller than 3? Let's do 0. If 0 is an option, pick 0. -0 just means 0 plus 3 is 3. And the point is it's positive. And then give me a number bigger than 3. 4 or 40 million if you want, but 4 will do. If you plug that in, -4 plus 3 is -1, and the point is it's negative. Hey, what do you notice happened there? It's the opposite. Oh my gosh, that's wild. And then this last one will give you 4. And nothing weird happened with that one. So negative to positive. And then you're going to slice up your number line. So what is your overall sign for the first section? Good. Negatives cancel, so that's positive, negative, positive, negative. Now our troublemaker would be 3. You kind of don't need to worry about it in this one anyway, because what are we going to put for all of our symbols anyhow? Yeah, they're all going to be parentheses anyway, so you kind of don't need to worry about it. And which sections do we want? The negatives, smaller than 0. So this one and this one. And then, so how do you write the answer? How would we write that we want this section? 1 to 3, parentheses, union. Good. Perfect. I like when there's not an equal to. That simplifies things. It's just they're all gonna be parentheses, is all that is. Last one. Okay, listen carefully for this one, because this is the most commonly typed missed question on the test. You have to get 0 on one side first. Do you see how for all the other problems here we had 0, 0, 0, 0? Do you see how they're all like we made it 0 first? This one's no different. So I'm going to subtract this to the other side. Evacuate. You have to, it's a harder problem. That's why I saved it for the last one. You have to get it not to equal 0, but to have 0 on what's in this case greater than 0. But you have to evacuate. You have to get it to be 0 first. That's like full stop, the first thing that you have to do. Now, if you want to put two fractions together, you need a common denominator. This one is, you basically just multiply them by each other. Some people will cross multiply. That's not technically what's happening, but it'll get you there. All right. This one's going to get multiplied by the x minus 5. I'm using a different color, but you kind of can't see it. This one's going to get multiplied by x plus 1. You're multiplying them by each other. And from there, it's just a bunch of algebra. It's just a bunch of distributing. All right. What would you get here? You're going to distribute a 2. Be 2x minus 10. And we want to put it together. We want to mush the two fractions together. Mush is a very technical term. You want to put all of this stuff in the numerator together. If you want to circle it, you can. This is all getting mushed together. You're not distributing a 3. That's like the one really difficult part. It's actually a -3. If you distribute a -3 into there, it'll give you, good, -3x minus 3. Just make sure you bring the negative with you. And believe it or not, when I grade the test, that part's actually okay. Like that part actually goes all right, negatives and all. People leave off the denominator. Like they just wave it goodbye. Your denominator is these two things, x minus 5, x plus 1. Like people will just not write that. And I do get why that happens. You feel like you've already worked really hard and there shouldn't have to be anything else there, but it's still a fraction, sorry. And then your last step is to get those like terms together. So if you put these like terms together, you're going to get what? That'll be -x minus 13. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that on my number line. So the numerator would be -x minus 13. And then you still need the x minus 5 and the x plus 1. That's the common mistake on the test. People just leave those off and only have one number line. Like, just don't forget to include those is all. I've just been doing this so long and I've graded so many pre-calculus tests that I just know where the mistakes happen, which helps you guys because then I can tell you, hey, don't do this. That's all right. You'll make different mistakes and then I'll to address those things. All right. So, and be careful because this one's got a negative. Hey, something weird happened. Which one's going to give you like the first year, like the most smallest one? I think it would be this one, right? If you set that equal to 0, Because how would you solve that? You would add the 13 and then divide by -1. So that first one's going to give you -13. Oh, something weird happened. It's not going to be negative to positive. It's going to be positive to negative. Or if that bothers you, you can always pick a test number and test it like I've showed you. And then which one would be next? X plus 1, that'll give you -1. And how can I fill in the line? Yep, negative to positive. And then the last one is 5. And again, negative to positive. If you get stuck on a question like this on your test, honestly, make up some number lines, like literally just invent something, because if your answer matches your number lines, I can give you credit for that. Don't ever leave something blank. I will bend over backwards to give you like a point. You know what I mean? And then fill in your signs. What's the overall sign for the first? Be positive. Negative times negative times negative would be negative. Yeah, and it's going to alternate. And then which sections do you want? It says greater than 0. So we want the positives. That's this one and this one. And we don't need to worry about the troublemakers. Why not? Yeah, we don't have the equal to anyway, so it's all going to be parentheses. So this first section would be -infinity to -13 union -1 to 5. And again, I'm going to say this before I stop the recording, so it's on the recording as well. You have to turn in your work for these because, again, they're just too easy to photo math. You just take a picture and it'll give you the answer. So I need to see your work, okay?